The time is exactly 9:54, our final interview for the morning, and quite a serious discussion with a Saftu spokesperson Trevor Shaku to talk to us about Saftu preparing to wield its enormous power later this month by leading the proposed national shutdown. The countrywide protest, supported by political institutions such as the EFF and PAC, threatens to bring Mzansi to its knees. Trevor Shaku, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Your listeners, and thanks for having us.
Lovely to have you here, but of course, not good news depending which side of the scale you're sitting on. Let's understand, when is the shutdown going to happen? I also just heard that COSATU has also joined this national shutdown. Um, when is the actual shutdown date? The place is, of course, Mzansi, and what can we expect on the day? And why, of course, the all important question.
The national shutdown is planned to take place on the 24th of August, 2022. That is in a week's time, Wednesday
Right.
week in particular. And we are mobilizing the trade union affiliates of Saftu. We have also consulted with the working class organizations on the 5th of August to join that particular national shutdown. And everyone and every gear now is on for the preparation of that particular day. And both organizations of the working class and Saftu trade union affiliates, and we've been lobbying, of course, other trade union federations to join us. We've written letters to COSATU, to FEDUSA, to NACTU, and
Okay, we've just lost you there.
on the 24th of August.
So, Trevor, the all important question, we know that Saftu has almost 1 million members. You're trying to get other trade unions on board as well. The big question is, what are your demands?
Our demands are focused on 6 areas. The first area is the rising cost of living. We want to protest against the rising costs of food basket, which have increased by more than 46% since December 2019. And as we speak, a family or a household of 4 members can survive on a grocery that costs now 4,700 and more. And on top of that, you have fuel prices which have been going up, and this have made it very difficult for those working class people with cars to be able to travel between home and work. But in addition, this has also pushed up the costs of commuter transport, the buses and the taxis. So this have actually even led to the commuter transport costs increasing by about 26%. And on top of that, we have an area on austerity where we think government's fiscal policy, which in the current period has led to what they call the creation of fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation merely means that they think that the fiscus or the government expenditure is unsustainable, and as a result, they want to embark on budget cuts to try to contain that particular unsustainable fiscal framework. And as a result, this has led to the sabotage and compromise of various public institutions such as schools, clinics, and hospitals, because those particular institutions, as we speak, do not have adequate numbers of staff. They are understaffed. They do not have infrastructure which is adequate for them to be able to cater the public. And this is reflected again in the fact that there is overcrowding in schools, there is overcrowding in hospitals and clinics. But moreover, you have a crisis of unemployment, which is the third area of focus. Unemployment has reached unprecedented levels in the past period. You currently have 12.4 million people unemployed in the country. And of those, you have, for instance, 75% of the youth between the ages of 15 and 24 being unemployed. You have the youth, the women, Black African women in particular, 53.7% of them are unemployed. And the list is endless in as far as that is concerned. The youth between the ages of 15 and 34, 47% of them are not in any form of employment, education, and training. This for us spells a serious crisis for the working class people in the country. And we think that because capitalism does not have the capacity and the capability to resolve the question and the crisis of unemployment, the need to cushion unemployment or the need to cushion the economic negative effects of unemployment would be to introduce the basic income grant of 1,500 for those who are unemployed. And we have, of course, other grievances around ESCOM load shedding, that there is mismanagement at that particular entity. But in addition to that, the plans of government to privatize that entity would also plunge us into a serious crisis in a longer term. So these are some of the areas which we are focusing on.
Okay, I can't argue with any of the points you've raised. Let me just pick up on the one that I have a couple of questions around. The Eskom's board and CEO Andre de Ruyter must step aside with no more privatization. So the question to ask you here is, obviously we've been hearing about sabotage within Eskom. Do you really believe that having Andre de Ruyter step aside is going to resolve the issues within Eskom? Yes, I do know there's issues regarding a very small, the board members. They haven't been replaced. They're operating with a very small amount of members on board. So you need the right people there. That point I agree on. But I'm wondering about getting Andre de Ruyter to step aside. Is that going to solve the problem? Who's going to replace him? And is, one of the other issues we need to be addressing, and perhaps here's where you guys need to come in, is sabotage at the utilities. You need to be talking to your members and telling them to stop sabotaging. You need to be telling your members right across the board to stop stealing at schools, hospitals, in destroying the infrastructure. You guys have the power and you can turn the tide. That's where you need to be focusing your attention. Your
Thanks.
thoughts?
We think, and that is the reason why in the way we phrased it, we said under the radar must go, but also the entire ANC administration must also go, because
Ah,
we think that the replacement of under the radar would not solve the crisis at ESCO, but we acknowledge that he's incompetent, and as a result, he must go. In addition to that, we say the ANC administration must go because it has demonstrated over time that it is failing to lead this country, not only in as far as state-owned enterprises are concerned, but generally across all spheres of life in the country. But just to look at ESCOM, for instance, some energy experts who would have advised the African National Congress as early as 1997, 1998, that with the growing population, ESCOM's capacity would be constrained and strained. And as a result, you would have to expand the energy generation, transmission, and even distribution capacity. And as a result, because the leadership of the ANC at the time had been convinced by the neoliberals in the global institutions of finance capital, have actually resolved not to expand the generation, transmission, and distribution capacity of ESCOM. What they had done at the time is actually to ignore those warnings by experts. And as a result, it is because they were preparing for the privatization of this particular entity together with other entities. You'll remember in the after that in that same period in 1998 they published the white paper, the white paper on energy, and that particular paper on energy uh, was one in which the ideas of privatization
we have just lost Trevor Shaku. His picture and sound has frozen. So let's just see if we can reconnect. It's a very important discussion, and I think we need to be
moment we
aware.
see the 2019 reform policy framework, which was produced by the Department of Public Enterprises, also uh, went further to take the ideas which were first formulated in the energy paper of 1998, again demonstrated in the accelerated agenda for privatization of state-owned enterprises in 2002. And in 2019, that particular paper demonstrated the same thing. So the whole crisis that ESCOM finds itself in, we say, is engineered on the basis of the fact that the ANC's administration has failed to ensure that it prepares it for growing demand. And growing demand is simple because with a growing population, you'll have growing demand for energy. Now, indeed, you are correct to say that as trade unions, we have a particular role to play in ensuring that we instill discipline amongst our members to ensure that they do not squander state resources, both in the state-owned enterprises, but also in the public institutions such as schools, clinics, and that. Because you have now and then cases of medicine being stolen. You have now and then cases of sabotage at ESCOM where people merely are involved in this so-called syndicates of stealing coal, where they are involved in exchanging good quality coal for coal that has the capacity and the what do you call it, the the
With
metals, the
rocks, yes, with
yeah,
rocks,
rocks and
etc.
other unwanted metals in those particular coal, which eventually damage the boilers of ESCOM. As a result,
Absolutely.
the trade unions have the particular role to play to instill that, because our 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 fight against corruption is not necessarily limited, and is not limited to the top crop of government in the ANC, for instance. But our fight against corruption is broad and includes even those particular members of ours who might be found to be involved in any form of corruption in the public institutions or state entities where they are working, including within the trade unions themselves.
You guys have a lot of power. You have a very large base, and you guys can make a meaningful difference by fighting the good fight and fighting the right fight. With this current shutdown, um, are you going to ensure that it's going to be a peaceful protest, that no infrastructure and shops and businesses will be looted in the process? I hope and pray that you're going to say yes to that. And are you are you going to be, taking memoranda to different mayors or different government officials during this protest?
The National Executive Committee of Saftu is sitting today, will hopefully emerge with a particular place where we will gather, and they will inform the public and the members of Saftu and the working class formations in general uh, as to where will we gather on the 24th. But indeed, the strike is planned to be very peaceful. uh, we think that all strikes of the working class organizations must always be peaceful, for a number of reasons. One, we are at the point where since 1994, the working class had been seriously demobilized, and we are trying to pick up pieces to bring it together and forge unity. And if there are things which, along the process of organizing and in the very strikes which we successfully are able to hold, we go on a rampage, we might actually disorient some of the working class people from joining us. So that's why, in the first place, as a matter of political tactic, we have to be peaceful. But secondly, because if we are not peaceful and end up being violent, we will destroy businesses which are employing the very same members
Absolutely.
who are members of these very trade unions, through which we exist, and without them we cannot exist. So we will, on those number of reasons, push for peaceful protests, and we are planning a peaceful protest.
And the memoranda, who is it being handed to, very quickly, because we've come to the end of the show?
We will announce at the end of the National Executive Committee today. We have not
Okay.
yet determined where we will be handing out the memoranda, but after in the afternoon or in the evening today, we'll obviously keep out a statement where we will highlight where will be the convention place, but also where will we be taking the memorandum to.
Trevor Shaku, thank you indeed for talking to us. What worried me at the start of this interview with you, and I'm glad that you're reassuring us that it's going to be a peaceful protest, is the headline said, "This is civil war. South Africa now just days away from a national shutdown." That's very misleading. Let's just correct those type of perceptions in all of the media and reassure us as a public it's going to be peaceful so that we can hear you and we can support you and your members as well. No looting, no rioting, no destruction, so that we can continue supporting you guys. All the very best for a very peaceful shutdown on the 24th, on the 24th, and let's get rid of a corrupt government. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show. Until the next time, God bless.
Thank you very much.
It is exactly 10 after 10. Thank you indeed for being with me on the show this morning. We have run over time, but of course, important issues that needed to be aired. Do hope you've enjoyed all of the discussions. Please stand by for Juz 17 by Sheikh Mahir Al Mu'ekli. Till tomorrow morning at the same time, as always, take care. Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.